Hi everyone, I'm doing this week's post via video, so I hope you can hear me fine. I hope you can see fine, but I'm going to start off now with my classroom drawing. This is for a third grade class, and this is actually a drawing I previously did in EDN 301. I just saved it. I saved quite a few of my stuff, but I was like, score, I saved it and I can use it again. But just a quick description. So if I had my way of designing my own classroom with money not being a factor or anything, my students will be in groups of 4. Obviously, this will take a few times throughout the beginning of the year to see who works the best with someone and who doesn't. So I'll have to switch seats around, until I get a good solid group that works well together. Or it might, never be possible. You never know. But anyways, you can see here I have my little instructing table right in front of my smartboard here, and I'll have like a projector or something that can, project documents and stuff on the wall. Over here is my main desk with my computer and my own personal printer. I mean, in a perfect world, that's what we would always want. But and then I have my little kidney bean table where I would hold small groups during, whole class work. Down here, I have what I would call our morning mat. This is where I would want the whole class to meet up every morning so we can go over what is on the schedule for the day and what the date is and all that fun stuff. This would probably happen, of course, after the kids all get in and sit down and do their morning work until the day commences. And then I've got my little reading mat over here that the kids can sit on. I do believe in flexible seating. I think that's a great idea. So over here the kids could read books, and then over here I would have my books. And then back here I would have my own personal bathroom if I had my choice. That way I can always keep track of my students, where they are, what they're doing, and then we can also keep our bathroom clean together, and I can help kind of teach them what sanitation is or being sanitary is and all that fun stuff. But in my own perfect world, this would be my classroom. Okay, well, going on to the remainder of the discussion here. General rules, this would be something I would have up at all times so students could refer to it. But I would go along something like this, and I did find many examples like this online too. So it's not just my own, I didn't make this up. I mean, a lot of people use this, and I think it's great. But general rules would be eyes looking, referring to looking on me or maybe another student if they're talking. Ears listening, hands to yourself, feet walking. We don't want anyone running unless it's on the playground. And voices quiet. Now, I didn't say silent because, I mean, let's be honest. We can't expect 100% silence 24/7. So by me just saying quiet, I'm allowing students to really be in charge of their voices. Of course, if I need to have silence, I will say that. I will say no voices at all. But in general, I want voices to be really calm and quiet, maybe even a whisper, especially during morning work or group work. But those would be my general rules. I would have entering the classroom rules, and this would be, so I'll use the morning as an example, and I've got everything written down right here. But so if students are coming in the morning, obviously they come in at different times based on the buses and parents dropping them off, but they would have to put their backpack and other personal belongings in their cubby, so their jacket, if it's the wintertime, toys that they have, anything like that. I would have a homework or assigned papers bin, so they would just, after putting their belongings down, they would put their homework, signed paperwork from parents, anything that came from home that I need to see would be put in one bin, just one simple bin. Next to that bin would be the morning work or quiet work bin. So they would pick a worksheet or an activity sheet out of this bin and start work. They would then go to their desk quietly and they would sit down and start working on this work until the day started officially. And then after they're done with their morning work, if the bell hasn't rung for the day, they would just have to sit quietly and wait for the day to start. So they could either sit there and just be quiet and stare at the wall, or they could read a book or, just do something quiet from their desk. So that would be entering the classroom. And this would also include coming back from specials or coming back from lunch, but that'll be a little easier because they'll all be together already. So it won't be this staggered constant flow of kids for 40 minutes or 20 minutes, however long it takes. But anyways, as far as leaving the classroom, I would probably have, since my students are more than likely going to be in groups of 3 or 4 in a desk, I will give them each numbers or give each group a number, and I will say this group lines up or this number student lines up, and then they will line up in that particular order. They will be required to push their chairs in and put away all their belongings. I will not tolerate messy desks. I am not a messy person. I mean, my house is a little messy now because I've got my children running around, but I think that clutter and just messiness in general really affects the human subconscious, and it causes us to be stressed out when we don't think we really are stressed out. So I will be extremely picky about clutter, my students' desks being organized, their cubby spaces being organized, all of that. I understand it'll take lots of time, lots of patience, but that will probably be my number one thing, is we will not have a classroom with stuff everywhere, with a thing in its place and a place for a thing, or however that saying goes. That will be my biggest motto in my classroom. But anyways, so they will have to push in their chairs and put away their belongings, and they will have to walk with no talking in the hallway. And this is just to teach them to respect other people in their classroom. I will also have designated door holders, but how that's going to work, and I think it's going to work the best, is the first student in line will be the one to hold open the door for the entire class to walk through. They will then catch up by getting at the end of the line. Then the next person in line, who's in the front now, will be the next door holder, and then they'll just go to the back when the whole class passes through the door. Obviously, some kids are going to be able to handle this better than others, so over time I will have to make these changes as I see fit. As far as asking for help, I think that it'll be best if my students are taught to how do I want to reword this? Actually, I will have in their group, each person will have a designated friend to ask for help. So whether it's the person across from them or kitty corners to them or next to them, they will have to ask them for help first if they can't figure it out on their own. After that, if they still don't have the answer, they can quietly ask the whole group for help. And if that still doesn't work, what I'm going to have my students do is when they have a question, they will put their hands on their head. That way I can see above the hands on the head. I think it's a very distinct thing to see a kid holding their hands on their head. Sometimes students are raising their hand, but they're stretching, and I might mistake that for a question. So I figure if kids are just sitting there with their hands on their head, then I know they have a question. And then sometimes kids can't control their hands, so they're all over the place, and then other kids get annoyed. So it's like, hands on the head, I know you have a question. As far as behavior management, the whole tier 1 thing, as far as the whole class goes, I will probably use more nonverbal communication, like eye contact, placing my hand over my mouth or doing this, or, holding up a 0 for 0 talking. Another thing that I read online that I thought was perfect is the whole eye contact thing. First of all, I think it's respectful to give someone eye contact, but at the same time, younger kids can take that as an intimidation, or it gives them anxiety and stresses them out if you're angry with them and staring at them at their eyes. But with that being said, if a student is talking or being distractive while I'm teaching a lesson, I will stop what I'm doing. With me just standing there not doing anything, it's going to get someone's attention. They're going to look at me and be like, why'd she stop talking? I will make eye contact with that student for as long as it takes for them to be like, oh yeah, I'm probably not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then I will get back to my lesson. I will probably do that a handful of times, but not too much, because I can see myself taking a lot of time away from a lesson, which takes away from the other student's lesson, to stare at a kid. So I might do that once or twice and then, go to my next step if it's necessary. But so as far as raising hands, I think I will tell my students to raise their hand if they have an answer to a question. So if I ask a question and I want them all to participate, then they can raise their hand. But if they have a question for me, that's when they'll do the hands on the head, okay? Because what happens is if I ask the whole class a question, I'm going to expect most of my students to raise their hand, okay? So no one's really going to care too much if a hand's in front of their face because everyone's hand's up. Now, if someone's trying to ask me a question and their hand is up but nobody else's hand's up, that hand can be really distracting and it could be in someone's way and they might get upset. Then a little fight's going to break out and so on and so forth. So if they have a question for me, they can put their hands on their head. It's not going to affect anyone's vision behind them or anything. So we will keep that going on. I might also try to do an extrinsic reward system, such as pom-poms in a jar, depending on who does a good job as a that affects the whole class. I will have individual extrinsic rewards along with like Class Dojo, I think is another very good program. But I think it's good if students have a visual as far as putting pom-poms in a mason jar and seeing that mason jar fill up, and then if they get to the top, they'll be rewarded with a party or a movie or something that is fun and doesn't really relate to schoolwork. But if they see the jar as a whole and they understand that that's the whole class doing that with that jar, I think that creates a sense of teamwork and pride in your class. So I'll do something along the lines of that. I'm not 100% sure if I'll do the pom-pom thing, but it'll be something along those lines. I don't agree with a behavior chart with individual names. I think that I just don't think it's got a place in the classroom anymore. I think at one point it might have worked, but our society and our kids are always changing. There's always new and better things figured out and whatnot. And I personally don't like putting students on, how do I want to say this, in the spotlight, especially if their behavior is poor. I think that makes it worse because they feel embarrassed. I mean, kind of like the whole back in the old day, you put the dunce hat on the kid and put them in the corner and then everyone points and laughs at them. That to me isn't doing anything. That's not going to help the behavior. It's just going to embarrass the kid and possibly make them more angry, which in turn will cause them to act out more, and it'll just snowball effect. But so as far as a visual, I will do it as a whole class. Everyone's responsible for the one mason jar with the pom-poms or another idea like that. But anyways, I feel like I kind of chatted your ear off, but that is my approach to my classroom rules and my behavior management as a whole class, and then of course my picture. So I hope you enjoyed it, and again, I apologize it was a long video, but anyways, I look forward to reading everyone else's post this week. Thank you.